Welcome to Fear Files. Today, we venture into the depths of cursed prisons, where supernatural forces and dark secrets threaten desperate souls seeking freedom. Prepare yourself for a journey into the unknown.
Blackwood Penitentiary loomed ominously against the darkening sky, its crumbling walls and rusted gates a testament to the horrors that lay within. Alex Turner stood at the edge of the dense forest, his heart pounding in his chest as he stared at the prison that had become his personal hell. Wrongfully convicted and desperate to clear his name, Alex knew this was his last chance at freedom. The plan was simple: navigate through the labyrinthine corridors of the abandoned prison, reach the hidden tunnels beneath, and escape to the mainland under the cover of night. But as Alex and his allies approached the gates, a chill ran down his spine. The air seemed to thicken with an unseen presence, and disembodied whispers echoed through the darkness. "Stay close," Alex whispered to his companions, a group of fellow inmates who had been wrongfully imprisoned like him. Each step they took reverberated through the empty halls, their footsteps mingling with the ghostly sounds that seemed to emanate from the very walls. As they ventured deeper into the prison, the supernatural phenomena grew more intense. Flickering lights cast eerie shadows that danced along the walls, and cold, clammy hands seemed to brush against them in the darkness. The apparitions of former inmates appeared and vanished, their hollow eyes filled with a sorrowful rage. "Do you hear that?" one of the inmates, Carlos, asked, his voice trembling. "It's like they're trying to tell us something." Alex nodded, his mind racing. The spirits were indeed trying to communicate, but their messages were cryptic and fragmented. As they pieced together the clues, they uncovered the dark history of Blackwood Penitentiary. Warden Henry Blackwood, a sadistic and cruel man, had conducted horrific experiments on the inmates, driving many to madness and death. The spirits of those tormented souls now sought vengeance, their anger directed at anyone who dared to trespass. The deeper they delved, the more malevolent the spirits became. They played sinister games, leading Alex and his allies into traps and dead ends. One by one, the group dwindled as the spirits claimed their victims, their terrified screams echoing through the halls. "We have to keep moving," Alex urged, his resolve hardening with each loss. "We can't let them win." As they pushed forward, Alex remembered the stories he had heard about the prison's past. The screams in the night, the disappearances, and the tales of spectral apparitions that had haunted the inmates long before the prison was abandoned. These stories had always seemed like the stuff of legends, the kind of tales passed around to scare the new inmates. But now, amidst the very real and present danger, Alex understood that there was more truth to the legends than he had ever imagined. In one of the abandoned cell blocks, they found an old, dusty journal belonging to a former inmate named Thomas Greaves. The journal detailed the horrors of Blackwood Penitentiary, the sadistic experiments, the inhumane treatment, and the supernatural occurrences that had plagued the prison since its inception. Greaves had written of a hidden tunnel system beneath the prison, a last-ditch escape route used by those desperate enough to brave the unknown. "This has to be it," Alex said, showing the journal to his remaining allies, Carlos and Sarah. "If we can find this tunnel, we might just make it out of here." They followed the clues in the journal, navigating through the dark, dank corridors of the prison. The air grew colder, and the presence of the spirits became more palpable. The walls seemed to close in on them, and every shadow seemed to harbor a malevolent force. Suddenly, Sarah let out a blood-curdling scream. "Something grabbed me," she cried, clutching her arm where a dark bruise was forming. The group turned to see a shadowy figure retreating into the darkness, its eyes glowing with a malevolent light. "Stay close," Alex urged, his voice firm despite the fear gnawing at his insides. "We have to keep moving." They pressed on, their senses heightened by the constant threat of the spirits. In the bowels of the prison, they found a rusted, ancient door marked with strange symbols. According to Greaves's journal, this was the entrance to the tunnels. Alex pushed the door open, revealing a narrow, winding staircase descending into the darkness. The air was thick with the stench of decay and the whispers of the damned. As they made their way down, the temperature dropped even further, their breath visible in the dim light of their makeshift torches. The tunnels were a maze of twisting passages and dead ends. The walls were lined with the skeletal remains of those who had perished in their attempt to escape. The spirits of these lost souls now haunted the tunnels, their mournful wails echoing through the darkness. At one point, they came across a large, cavernous room filled with old, rusted machinery. The air was thick with the smell of oil and decay. In the center of the room was a large, circular portal, surrounded by strange runes and symbols. "This must be it," Alex said, his voice trembling with a mix of fear and hope. "The way out." As they approached the portal, the spirits grew more agitated. The air crackled with dark energy, and the shadows seemed to come alive, reaching out to grasp at them. "We have to go now!" Alex shouted, grabbing Sarah and Carlos by the arms and pulling them towards the portal. The spirits closed in, their wails rising to a deafening crescendo. Alex could feel their icy fingers grasping at him, pulling him back into the darkness. With a final, desperate push, he and his companions stumbled through the portal. They emerged into the cool night air, the prison behind them shrinking into the distance. They had made it. They were free. But the horrors of Blackwood Penitentiary would stay with them forever. They had faced the darkest of nightmares and emerged victorious. But they would never forget the malevolent spirits that had haunted their every step. As they disappeared into the night, Alex looked back at the prison one last time. He had escaped its physical confines, but the psychological torment would linger. The ghosts of Blackwood Penitentiary would forever haunt his dreams, a constant reminder of the price of freedom. Alex, Sarah, and Carlos continued to trek through the dense forest surrounding Blackwood Penitentiary. The moonlight filtered through the thick canopy, casting eerie shadows on the ground. Their breath came in ragged gasps, a mix of exhaustion and lingering fear. "We need to keep moving," Alex said, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. "We don't know if the spirits can follow us out here." Sarah nodded, still clutching her arm where the bruise had formed. "I can still feel them, Alex. It's like they're watching us." Carlos, usually the most skeptical, now looked visibly shaken. "I never believed in ghosts until tonight. Let's just get as far away from this place as possible." They continued their journey, the oppressive weight of the prison slowly lifting with each step they took. The forest was silent, except for the occasional rustle of leaves and the distant call of a nocturnal bird. But the further they walked, the more Alex felt the need to understand the full extent of what they had encountered. When they finally reached a small clearing, they decided to rest. The adrenaline that had fueled their escape was wearing off, replaced by sheer exhaustion. They built a small fire to keep warm and to ward off any lingering fears. As the flames danced, Alex pulled out the journal of Thomas Greaves. "We need to know more about what happened back there," he said, opening the worn pages. "This journal might have answers." The three of them huddled close, the firelight casting long shadows on their faces. Alex began to read aloud, translating Greaves's desperate scrawl. October 15th, 1896. The warden's experiments grow more horrific by the day. He claims it's for the betterment of mankind, but I see the madness in his eyes. The screams of the other inmates echo through these walls, their souls tormented and broken. I fear the spirits of those who have perished here will never find peace. Alex paused, glancing at his companions. The horror in their eyes mirrored his own. It sounds like Warden Blackwood was conducting some kind of supernatural experiments. He continued reading. November 2nd, 1896. Strange symbols have appeared on the walls, and the air grows colder each day. I hear whispers in the darkness, voices of the damned. They speak of revenge, of reclaiming their stolen lives. The warden's grip on this place extends beyond death. He is more than a man now. He is a monster, a wraith fueled by our suffering. Sarah shivered, pulling her jacket tighter around her. That explains why the spirits were so malevolent. They were being controlled by Blackwood, even in death. Carlos frowned. But why? What was he trying to achieve? Alex turned the page, his eyes scanning the final entries. December 5th, 1896. I have found a way out. The tunnels beneath the prison are our only hope. But beware, for they are guarded by the souls of the damned. To escape, we must face the horrors that lie within. Blackwood's curse binds us all, but perhaps in freedom, we can find peace. He closed the journal, the weight of its contents settling heavily on them. Blackwood's experiments bound the spirits to the prison. They were trapped, just like us. But when we broke free, we disrupted his control. Carlos looked thoughtful. So, by escaping, we not only freed ourselves, but also weakened Blackwood's hold on the spirits. Sarah sighed, a mix of relief and sadness in her eyes. I hope those poor souls can finally find peace. They sat in silence for a while, each lost in their thoughts. The fire crackled, a small comfort in the vast darkness. Eventually, they decided to move on, the need for safety driving them forward. As they continued their journey, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that their escape was only the beginning. The horrors of Blackwood Penitentiary had left a mark on them, one that would never truly fade. But they had survived, and they had each other. And in that, they found a glimmer of hope. Days turned into weeks, and the trio eventually reached a small town on the mainland. Exhausted but determined, they began to rebuild their lives. They knew that the story of Blackwood Penitentiary needed to be told, not just for their own sake, but for the souls that had been trapped there for so long. Alex took it upon himself to document their experiences, using Greaves's journal as a foundation. He wrote tirelessly, pouring his heart and soul into the pages. The story of their escape became a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the enduring power of hope. The manuscript eventually caught the attention of a journalist named Emily Hart, who had a reputation for uncovering the truth behind the most harrowing tales. She reached out to Alex, intrigued by his story and eager to help bring it to the public. Together, they worked to publish the manuscript, shedding light on the dark history of Blackwood Penitentiary. The book, titled The Haunted Escape, became a bestseller, capturing the imagination and fear of readers worldwide. As the story spread, people began to come forward with their own tales of supernatural encounters at the prison. The once forgotten horrors of Blackwood Penitentiary were brought into the light, and the public demanded that the site be investigated and preserved as a historical landmark. In the end, the prison was transformed into a memorial, a place where people could learn about the atrocities that had taken place and pay their respects to the souls that had suffered. Alex, Sarah, and Carlos visited the site on the anniversary of their escape, standing together as they faced the now empty halls. "I can't believe it's been a year," Sarah said, her voice filled with a mix of wonder and sorrow. Carlos nodded. "Feels like a lifetime ago." Alex smiled, a sense of closure washing over him. "We did it. We brought the truth to light, and in doing so, we helped those spirits find peace." They stood in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. The ghosts of Blackwood Penitentiary were no longer a threat, but a reminder of the strength and resilience that had carried them through the darkest of times. As they left the memorial, Alex felt a sense of peace that he had not known in a long time. The horrors of Blackwood Penitentiary would forever be a part of him, but they no longer held power over his life. He had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, and he knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, he could overcome them. The trio continued their journey, their bond strengthened by the trials they had faced together. They knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but they also knew that they had the strength to face whatever came their way. And as they walked into the light of a new day, they carried with them the memories of Blackwood Penitentiary, a testament to the enduring power of hope, courage, and the human spirit. The fog enveloped Devil's Rock like a shroud, cloaking the island in an almost supernatural gloom. The prison loomed over the jagged cliffs, its Gothic spires piercing the sky like accusing fingers. Built in the early 20th century, Devil's Rock Penitentiary had a reputation for being impregnable. Its thick stone walls had contained the worst of society for decades, and its isolation on a remote island surrounded by treacherous waters made escape nearly impossible. But even more chilling were the whispers of a dark curse that lingered within its walls, a malevolent force said to be the restless spirits of inmates who had met brutal ends. Maria Sanchez, a former street racer, found herself at the mercy of this fortress of despair. At 28, she was tough and resourceful, with a fierce determination to survive. Falsely accused of a high-profile crime, Maria had been railroaded into Devil's Rock by corrupt officials eager for a scapegoat. Her skills behind the wheel had been her undoing, painted as evidence of her supposed reckless nature. Now, she faced a grimmer challenge, surviving the haunted halls of Devil's Rock and finding a way to escape. The first thing Maria noticed upon her arrival was the oppressive atmosphere. The air felt thick, almost suffocating, and the walls seemed to close in on her. The other inmates were a rough bunch, but it wasn't just them she had to worry about. The guards were brutal, and the warden, Richard Grayson, was a sadistic tyrant who took pleasure in breaking spirits. Grayson was a tall, imposing man with a cold, calculating gaze that seemed to pierce through any pretense. At 50, he was a fixture of the prison, his reputation for cruelty well known among the inmates. There were rumors that he had a hand in the deaths of several prisoners, and some even whispered that he had made a pact with the spirits that haunted the prison. Whether or not the latter was true, Grayson certainly seemed to have an uncanny ability to anticipate and crush any escape attempts. Maria's cell was in one of the oldest parts of the prison, an area known for its eerie atmosphere and unexplained phenomena. At night, the temperature would drop sharply, and strange noises echoed through the corridors. Chains rattling, disembodied whispers, and fleeting apparitions were common occurrences. Maria tried to brush them off as her imagination playing tricks, but deep down, she knew there was something more to it. Determined to escape, Maria began to plan her move. She knew she couldn't do it alone, so she quietly reached out to a few inmates she thought she could trust. Jackson, a burly man with a quiet demeanor, had been imprisoned for a crime he didn't commit. Lena, a sharp-witted woman, had been a successful con artist before her arrest. Together, they formed a small but determined group, united by their desire for freedom. The night of the escape was shrouded in darkness. The fog was thicker than ever, and the prison was eerily quiet. Maria, Jackson, and Lena moved through the corridors with practiced stealth, their hearts pounding in their chests. They had to make their way to the underground passages that connected the prison to the cliffs. These passages were rumored to be haunted, but they had no choice. As they descended into the darkness, the temperature dropped sharply. The passages were narrow and claustrophobic, the walls slick with moisture. Whispers filled the air, growing louder with each step they took. Shadows moved at the edges of their vision, and the feeling of being watched was overwhelming. "Stay close," Maria whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "We have to keep moving." Jackson nodded, his jaw set in determination. "We're almost there. Just a little further." Lena clutched a makeshift weapon, her eyes darting around nervously. I don't like this. It feels like they're watching us. They are, Maria replied, but we can't let them stop us. The group pressed on, their path illuminated only by the dim light of their flashlights. The passages twisted and turned, creating a disorienting maze. The whispers grew louder, now accompanied by the sound of chains rattling and distant screams. Suddenly, the ground beneath them shook, and the walls seemed to close in. An apparition appeared before them, a spectral figure of a former inmate, his face twisted in agony. "Turn back," the ghostly figure moaned. "You cannot escape." Maria steeled herself, stepping forward. "We have to. We're not like you. We have a chance." The apparition reached out, its ghostly hand passing through Maria's chest. She gasped, feeling a cold, searing pain. But she didn't back down. "We're leaving," she said firmly. "And you can't stop us." The figure's eyes glowed with a sinister light, but it slowly faded away, leaving the group in tense silence. "Let's go," Jackson urged, helping Maria steady herself. They continued, the oppressive atmosphere growing more intense with each step. The whispers turned into screams, and the passageway seemed to twist and warp around them. Reality itself was becoming distorted, the prison's curse manifesting in terrifying ways. Finally, they reached a large chamber, the exit to the cliffs visible on the other side. But standing between them and freedom was Warden Grayson, his eyes filled with a malevolent gleam. "Did you really think you could escape?" Grayson sneered. "This prison is my domain. You will never leave." Maria stepped forward, her fists clenched. "We're leaving, Grayson. You can't keep us here." Grayson laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the chamber. "You have no idea what you're up against. The spirits of this prison are mine to command." As he spoke, spectral figures emerged from the walls, their ghostly forms surrounding the group. The air grew colder, and the screams of the damned filled their ears. Maria's mind raced. They couldn't fight the spirits, but maybe they could outsmart them. She glanced at the journal she had found in the prison library, the one that detailed the prison's dark history and the curse that bound it. "Grayson," she called out, her voice steady. "This prison is cursed because of you. You're the one who brought this evil here." Grayson's eyes narrowed. "You know nothing." "I know enough," Maria continued, holding up the journal. "I know that the only way to break the curse is to confront the truth. The spirits are bound here because of the atrocities committed within these walls. If you let us go, we can bring the truth to light and set them free." Grayson hesitated, a flicker of doubt crossing his face. The spirits around them seemed to waver, their forms flickering. "You're lying," Grayson spat, but his voice lacked conviction. Maria took a step forward. "You don't have to be their puppet anymore. Let us go, and we can end this nightmare." For a moment, the chamber was silent. Then, slowly, the spirits began to retreat, their anguished cries fading into the darkness. Grayson looked around, his expression one of disbelief and anger. "No," he shouted. "I won't let you." But it was too late. The spirits, sensing a chance for redemption, turned their wrath on Grayson. He screamed as they dragged him into the shadows, his fate sealed by the very forces he had sought to control. With the way now clear, Maria, Jackson, and Lena rushed towards the exit. The cold night air hit their faces as they emerged onto the cliffs, the prison's dark silhouette looming behind them. "We made it," Jackson said, his voice filled with relief. Maria nodded, taking a deep breath. "But we're not done yet. We have to make sure the truth about Devil's Rock is known. We owe it to those who suffered here." Lena looked back at the prison, a shiver running down her spine. "Let's make sure no one ever has to go through that again." As they made their way to freedom, the fog began to lift, revealing a new dawn. The curse of Devil's Rock had been broken, and for the first time in decades, The island was at peace, but the scars it left behind would remain, a haunting reminder of the darkness that once ruled within its walls. The path to the mainland was treacherous, but Maria's determination drove her forward. The sun was rising, casting a golden glow on the horizon, and for the first time in years, she felt a glimmer of hope. Upon reaching the shore, they were met by a small fishing boat, its captain a weathered old man who had once been an inmate of Devil's Rock. He had escaped years before and had been helping others ever since. His eyes widened in surprise and relief as he saw Maria and her companions. "You made it," he said, his voice filled with awe. "I never thought I'd see the day." Maria smiled, exhaustion and triumph in her eyes. "We're free, but we have work to do." As the boat made its way to the mainland, Maria looked back at Devil's Rock, now a distant silhouette on the horizon. The prison's dark legacy would not be forgotten, but she was determined to shine a light on its horrors and bring justice to those who had suffered. In the weeks that followed, Maria and her allies worked tirelessly to uncover and expose the truth about Devil's Rock. They gathered testimonies from former inmates, collected evidence of the warden's crimes, and brought the prison's dark history to the public's attention. The revelations shocked the nation, leading to investigations and reforms that would ensure such atrocities could never happen again. Maria's story became a symbol of resilience and justice, a testament to the strength of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable darkness. And while the memories of Devil's Rock would always haunt her, she found solace in knowing that she had helped to break its curse and bring peace to the souls trapped within its walls. As she stood before a memorial erected in honor of the victims of Devil's Rock, Maria placed a single flower at its base. The names of the fallen were etched into the stone, a permanent reminder of their suffering and sacrifice. "Rest in peace," she whispered, a tear rolling down her cheek. "You're free now." With that, she turned and walked away, the sun shining brightly overhead. The nightmare of Devil's Rock was over, but the fight for justice and truth would continue. And Maria Sanchez, the street racer who had defied the odds, would be at the forefront of that fight, her spirit unbroken and her resolve stronger than ever. Julian Kane, a master thief with an unmatched reputation for evading capture, found himself confined within the fortress-like penitentiary known as Blackstone Penitentiary. The year was 2025, and advancements in technology had transformed this prison into an impenetrable fortress. Located on a remote island, surrounded by treacherous waters and sheer cliffs, Blackstone was a place from which no one had ever escaped. The prison was equipped with state-of-the-art surveillance, automated security systems, and an elite team of guards who showed no mercy. Julian, however, was determined to be the first to break free. He had been set up, betrayed by his closest confidant during a heist that should have secured his future. Now, in the cold, oppressive environment of Blackstone, he was formulating a plan for his escape. But he needed help. And in Blackstone, help came from the most unexpected places. The setting of Blackstone added to the dread. Built in the late 19th century, the prison's architecture was a blend of Gothic and industrial design. Tall, dark spires loomed over thick stone walls, and the dimly lit corridors echoed with the clanking of chains and the occasional wail of a tormented soul. It was said that the prison itself was alive, feeding off the despair of its inhabitants. The legend went that Blackstone was constructed atop ancient cursed grounds, a place where dark rituals were performed long before the prison's existence. Julian's allies were a motley crew. There was Lucas, a burly, tattooed enforcer who had once been part of a notorious biker gang; Sarah, a former hacker with a sharp mind and a quicker tongue; and Malik, an ex-soldier with a haunted past. Each had their reasons for wanting to escape, and each brought valuable skills to the table. As Julian and his allies delved deeper into the prison's bowels, they encountered strange phenomena. Shadows moved of their own accord, whispers of forgotten conversations filled the air, and sometimes they saw glimpses of figures that vanished as quickly as they appeared. The atmosphere grew more oppressive with each step, the air thick with an unseen menace. Julian knew the risks of delving into the prison's darkest corners. It was rumored that inmates who ventured too deep never returned, swallowed by the shadows that lived within black stone. Yet he was desperate, and desperation often leads to the unimaginable. One night, Julian finally made contact with the Keeper. It was in the deepest, darkest part of the prison, where the air was stale, and the light of the flickering torches barely penetrated the gloom. The Keeper appeared as a tall, shadowy figure with glowing red eyes that seemed to pierce through Julian's soul. The entity's voice was a low, rumbling whisper that seemed to emanate from the very walls of the prison. "You seek freedom," the Keeper intoned, "but freedom comes at a price." Julian, though unnerved, stood his ground. "What do you want?" The Keeper's eyes gleamed with a sinister light. "I want your deepest fears, your darkest desires. In exchange, I will show you the way out." Julian agreed, knowing he had little choice. From that moment, he and his allies began experiencing nightmarish visions. Each of them was forced to confront their deepest fears and darkest secrets. Julian saw visions of his betrayal, reliving the moment when his best friend had turned on him, feeling the knife twist in his back both metaphorically and literally. Lucas faced the ghost of a rival gang member he had killed in a fit of rage. Sarah was haunted by the faces of those whose lives had been ruined by her hacking, while Malik saw the comrades he had lost in battle, accusing him of their deaths. The entity's influence grew stronger, warping reality and twisting their perceptions. The walls of the prison seemed to close in on them, the corridors shifting and changing, turning their escape into a nightmarish labyrinth. Each step they took was fraught with danger, as the malevolent spirits of former inmates sought to drag them into the abyss. The climax of their ordeal came when they reached the heart of the prison, where an ancient eldritch gateway pulsed with a sinister energy. The Keeper revealed that Blackstone was built atop a nexus of dark power, serving as a gateway to a nightmarish dimension where ancient horrors lurked. The entity demanded one final sacrifice to open the gateway and allow their escape. Julian, determined to see his allies free, offered himself. But his friends, bound by the camaraderie forged in the fires of their shared suffering, refused to let him go alone. Together, they confronted the Keeper, using their combined strength to resist the entity's pull. As they stood before the Eldritch Gateway, they were assaulted by visions of their darkest fears and greatest regrets. The Keeper reveled in their torment, feeding off their anguish. Julian saw his former friend, the one who had betrayed him, grinning with malice. Lucas saw the lifeless eyes of his rival. Sarah heard the cries of those she had wronged, and Malik felt the accusing stares of his fallen comrades. But they pressed on, driven by a desperate desire for freedom. Julian, using his skills as a master thief, devised a plan to turn the Keeper's power against itself. He had noticed that the entity seemed to draw strength from their fear and despair. If they could confront their fears head-on and deny the Keeper its sustenance, they might weaken it enough to break free. They began to face their fears directly. Julian confronted the specter of his betrayer, speaking the words he had longed to say, releasing the anger and pain he had held onto for so long. Lucas apologized to the ghost of his rival, seeking forgiveness. Sarah reached out to the apparitions of those she had wronged, offering her remorse. Malik stood before the spirits of his fallen comrades, accepting his guilt and vowing to honor their memory. As they confronted their fears, the Keeper's power began to wane. The entity shrieked in fury, its form flickering and weakening. Seizing the moment, Julian used his cunning to manipulate the eldritch energy of the gateway. He had studied the ancient symbols and incantations he had found in the prison's darkest corners, and now he put that knowledge to use. With a final desperate effort, Julian and his allies redirected the energy of the gateway, channeling it into the Keeper. The entity howled in agony as the power it had drawn from their fears was turned against it. The eldritch gateway pulsed with blinding light, and the Keeper was drawn into the vortex, its malevolent presence finally vanquished. When the light faded, Julian and his allies found themselves outside the prison, standing on the rocky shore of the island. They were free, but the experience had left them scarred, both physically and mentally. The horrors they had faced in Blackstone would never truly leave them, and the price they had paid would haunt them for the rest of their lives. Julian looked at his companions, each of them bearing the marks of their ordeal. They had faced the darkness together and emerged on the other side, forever changed. As they made their way to the waiting boat that would take them to safety, Julian knew that their bond, forged in the crucible of Blackstone's horrors, would endure. The legend of Blackstone Penitentiary continued to grow, and tales of the Keeper and the Eldritch Gateway became part of the prison's dark lore. But Julian and his friends had escaped, proving that even in the darkest of places, hope and determination could prevail against the forces of darkness. And though they were free, they would always carry with them the memory of the prison's malevolent shadows and the price they had paid for their freedom.
Thanks for joining us on this eerie escape from cursed prisons. If you enjoyed the journey, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more tales of supernatural terror and desperate souls. Until next time, stay vigilant and stay safe.